One player on everyone's lips, not just for Melbourne Victory, but in the A-League, Nani. Now, Thomas, you played against this guy quite a bit back in the Premier League, also for the internationally for your national teams, and we're doing a bit of research, and it turns out you very much helped him sort of kick on his career, just get off to an absolute perler of a start.
Yeah, I'm proud of it. Look at the career he had after that. Yeah, he scored in his first international game in a friendly against Denmark and myself. So that's a proud moment in my career. But yeah, no, what excitement it is to have him here in the A-League. Electric player, remember obviously for his time at United, looking into some of the stats. And, I think he's just been overshadowed by Ronaldo because people sort of forget, how good he was and how many, goals, assists. He led the Premier League one year in assists. The trophies he's won, over 100 caps for Portugal. And on his day, a tough player to play against as a goalkeeper. Obviously they had both Ronaldo and him, and you could just never relax in a game. Always, just the ability to go past players. It just makes you tough because what you want is you just want teams playing around and you're settled, and as a keeper it's quite easy. But when they start beating players, that's when you get people dragged out of position, and you have to make decisions on who goes, who stays, and even as a keeper, do you try to get involved or do you stay back? And he was just that constant threat with Ronaldo as well, and great to have him here. I can't wait to see what he can do for Victory.
So we've had some unbelievable marquee players. Where does he rank? Where will he rank at the end of the season in terms of the all-time A-League marquee greats?
Yeah, I think the end of the season will be able in a better position to know his influence on the league. But when you look at the signings, you look back 10 years ago and Alessandro Del Piero was the biggest name we've had in the A-League. I think he comes in a very close second to Del Piero because he comes 34 years of age, still in great condition. He is going to take the league by storm. Perhaps not the star factor of the Del Piero, but when people see him strut his stuff on the pitch, I think they'll come and he'll get bums on seats, Nani, with that English Premier League profile and what he did at Manchester United. I think people will be really excited to see him play for Melbourne Victory this season.
I think he might be a few years older than that, but to be honest, he'd have most people fooled because he's in unbelievable condition. The word is that Melbourne Victory obviously did their homework, as Tony Popovic always does. It reminds me of back in the Wanderers inaugural season when the FFA wanted Michael Ballack, but he said, no, I want Shinji Ono because he's better prepared. And, history proved him correct. But Nani has been unbelievable over at Orlando and over in the Serie A as well. How do you think he specifically will help this Melbourne Victory side?
Obviously his experience, the creativity. I think, having him on the wing, you got Jake Brimmer. I think, those two are going to be, tremendous together, I think. And also, I heard him speak at the A-League launch the other day, and he really came across as a first of all, a really nice, humble person, but also someone who's here with a purpose. And he's not just here to pick up a check; he's here to make a difference. And you got to love that as well. If you can get the star quality with someone who loves being in Australia and really takes it to heart, I think it can only be a great thing. And seeing him, I think next weekend is going to be fantastic.
It does make you think about sort of the other end of the scale, doesn't it? You've got, I guess, Del Piero, Ono, etc. at one end, Heskey, and then at the other you've probably got Sturridge, Jardel, these kinds of players.
Absolutely, but when you look at Melbourne Victory's recruits this year, also I think Chris Economides is almost like a new recruit for them. He missed a lot of football last year, so he comes back. Let's not forget he was a lock for the Asian Cup squad in 2019. He played at the Asian Cup for the Socceroos, so he's been flying in the pre-season.
He was really struggling with confidence last year, wasn't he? He just couldn't get going.
Yeah, and I think his body let him down. Tommy Urich, we know that he's been around the traps, but we know that Tony Popovic can get the best out of players, and a fit Tommy Urich will be a huge signing for Melbourne Victory. He'll be pushing Nick D'Agostino for that spot and be able to rotate those two. Very different players, but it gives them that diversity. Their midfield, Marchand, Brillante, Brimmer, it's one of the best in the league. And then the goalkeeper. I think one of their weak points last year was Ivan Kalava. He was a great character, but he was accident prone. And bringing in Paul Izzo, I think, is going to help them a lot.
Yeah, no, I think he's been good for many years, Izzo. A little bit underrated. So again, I think all round, like you said, I think they've recruited really well. And going back to Nani, I think, D'Agostino, I think you would expect him to at least start. He's a goal scorer. He'll be in the right spot, so he needs the service, and I think that's where Nani comes in. He can create those chances.
We can quickly forget and move on, but if you rewind 12 to 15 months, this club, perhaps the biggest club in the A-League, was absolutely on the canvas. They were nowhere. 2 horrendous years, bottom of the table. How do you reflect on that turnaround, Zappa? How did they do it, and how are they placed to carry that on this season?
I think it just highlights how good a coach Tony Popovic is, and it's another big tick on his resume. You're right, they were down and out, and they were at the bottom of the barrel.
The
Melbourne
fans
Victory
were baying for blood, weren't they?
Yeah, absolutely, and to turn it around so quickly is extraordinary. His discipline, his recruitment was very smart. And I know there was disappointment from Melbourne Victory fans because they thought they could have won the title last year. They could have won the grand final, even though they came from bottom. So that fire is there. They'll be hurting from losing to Western United last year. An extraordinary turnaround. 10 out of 10 for me for Tony Popovic last year, and they'll be, for me, they're the favourites to win the title this year.
Zappa, we may reckon you have a bit of intel on this one, so I might throw it to Tommy Sørensen to discuss the Socceroos. But Melbourne Victory, another one where they've had players knocking on the door but haven't really had too many break into the Socceroos squad per se, certainly not regulars. You touched on D'Agostino. Jakey Brimmer, Warren medalist last year, his breakthrough season. Ben Falami was outstanding on the wing. Matty Sporanovic was meant to get called up for one of the games, and Economidis also you touched on. And it was so good to see this Victory turnaround led by a group of Australian players. But can you see any of these players breaking into the Qatar squad?
I think Brimmer and D'Agostino are probably the closest. If they kick off the season like they played last year, I think they have a shot. I would love to see Brimmer in there. I thought he was a difference maker in a lot of games last year. His vision, his goals. I don't think there's many similar players in the Socceroos side. Jackson Irvine is obviously playing in that midfield, but to have that goal-scoring midfielder, and Moy has moved further back now as well. So just have another option, I think would be great for the Socceroos. So. There's a couple of them that has a shot. It all depends on these 6-7 games.
Absolutely. And again, I think the midfield is one of those areas where there is depth for the Socceroos. You've got Riley McGree, who's playing at Middlesbrough every week now. As you mentioned, Aaron Moy at Celtic. Jackson Irvine. I think Jackson Irvine's move to Germany has really helped him. I think he's really improved as a player. He's in the leadership team there at St. Pauli now and has taken on that leadership role. And Aidan Hrustic is now playing in the Serie A as well. So, there is a fair bit of depth. But, I think Jake Brimmer's really close.
Just a final tip on Melbourne Victory, boys. I have a feeling you reckon they might be at the pointy end.
I think Victory, for me, their squad, their coach, the fire in the belly from just missing out last year, I think they will finish top this year.
Yeah, again, I as much as I hate saying it, but I love that they're back at the top. We need that. It's great when you have excitement around Melbourne, around the 2 Melbourne seed, 3 Melbourne teams.
The derbies were red hot.
Yeah,
last season,
and we need
they?
that. The A-League needs it. So, I tip Melbourne City to go first. So I'll tip Victory to go second.
But then win the title at the end.
That's up in the air. That's up in the air. That's not what we're talking about.